That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
I'm Larry Flick. Welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Music, powered by the fine folks at VERO. If you're not part of the VERO community, get with the program, y'all. Now, we get together on a regular basis and talk about all things music and things that are related to music. I could never do this without my co-pilot, Pete Larry Winfield, the mastermind behind the great Until the Ribbon Breaks. He's my co-pilot here on Let's Talk Music. We're also joined by, pretend I'm not talking about you like you're sitting there looking at me right now, Dan. This kid is going to be a huge star. Hello, Dan Ora.
Hello.
So where are we finding you today? Where are you in the world?
I'm in London. I'm calling from London.
So you have your new record. You have your first. Is this your first EP or your second EP?
It's my first EP. We're slowly rolling it out, and it'll be with you this month. So I'm very excited.
Very cool. It's really, really. I'm excited to finally say hello to you. And now, I saved one of the best for last. This is a woman. She goes down in music history as the first woman to ever win the Remixer of the Year Grammy, doing so for the Madonna record I Rise. She's had over 60 #1 hits on the Billboard Club chart. She is a producer, she is a remixer, she is a DJ, she is my friend, she is insane in all the right ways. Tracy Young. Tracy, my love, it's so nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Larry. It's good to be here.
And you're in DC today?
I am. I came to visit my family, and I'm from Virginia. Yeah, it's good to be home. I haven't seen them in a year because of COVID and everything. So
this episode of Let's Talk Music it's the one about social media. You may call it the thing you love. It may be the thing that fuels your creativity and your professional life, or it may be the necessary evil that you have to dance with. So we're going to begin the conversation with exactly that. What does social media mean to you? Is it something you embrace? Is it a necessary evil? Or is it somewhere between the two? Let's start with Dan.
For me personally, I've had quite the journey with social media. It's kind of good, but it's also not amazing because there are a lot of things and a lot of weight that comes with having a social media account and also presenting yourself to the public. And as I've kind of gone along, I've gained more followers, and I don't have loads of followers, but I still, there's a lot of people that look at me, and it's scary sometimes, and especially it can affect your mental health. And I know I've had a lot of problems with like public speaking, and that for me is it's something that makes me quite anxious. I know it doesn't make sense because I am a singer, but when it comes to like talking to a load of people, especially like on my stories or wherever, it's hard not to feel anxious because so many people are looking at you. But it's also been amazing because I've connected with so many people over social media and so many people in the industry, and I wouldn't know half the people that I do today if it wasn't for social media. So it's a battle, but I think we're better with it than we are without it.
How much of your anxiety comes from the personal part? Because what we haven't talked about yet is that you're openly gay.
Yeah.
Not as big an issue supposedly now as it was when I was your age, but I'm not so sure I believe that.
It has changed a lot, definitely, over the years.
But is it hard to be out in social media?
It was, and obviously still I get comments, and I just tend not to, I kind of reply to my comments for the first kind of hour or so, and then I just kind of leave it because that's when I get, those stupid, like, whatever, like homophobic comments or, anything like that, I just kind of leave it now, and it doesn't really affect me as much as it used to, because I've had social media for a long time, and like I had Instagram when I was like 12, or when it came out basically, and I was a lot more flamboyant, and a lot more like, I don't care what you think, blah blah blah, because I could, and that definitely like didn't help the hate. And I think part of why I have such a fear of public speaking and stuff like that is because of how I was bullied in school, and how I talk and how I walk and all of this stuff. I think that was such a huge part of it, and a lot of people don't understand, and they don't get it, that it does have a huge impact on the person.
So Tracy, you have, I think may have a different experience, because your career was in full mode as social media became such an important part of our lives, and so I wonder how you've navigated that as a person of notoriety, as a person who has relationships with famous people. And I know that if someone thinks that I can get them to Madonna, they're going to treat me very differently than if I'm talking about taking a walk in the hills with my husband. So what's your relationship with social media?
When it first started, I saw it as an amazing tool to reach people through music, and like way back with MySpace, I actually, interesting story. I did a record by Idina Menzel called Defying Gravity, which was rejected by Warner Brothers. It was a remix. And ironically enough, I played it at a club in London. I think it was Crash. I don't know. I can't remember the name. But based off that one play, that record broke. And I put it on MySpace. And then it kind of pushed Warner Brothers into putting it out based on that. So, when it first started, I kind of saw it as a great marketing tool and a great way to kind of connect the musical world together. I'm not someone that puts a lot of my personal stuff up there. I've seen it evolve into something that is not as positive as I think it once was. And as Dan said, I mean, I've seen it's almost like it's become more negative than positive in that way. And people are so mean, and I don't have that DNA running through my body. But for me, it's love hate. I've evolved from MySpace to Facebook to then Instagram. It's a complicated relationship, I think. It's a necessary evil. I look at it more as a business tool, I think, now, rather than the way that I used to, which was getting my friends all together. And it's turned into business for a lot of people.
It's a very interesting thing you say, though, Tracy, because I find that I use different, because when working in our business, you have to kind of be on all these apps. And, some are more social than others. It's almost like that line from Brokeback Mountain. I wish I could quit you, but you can't. So Pete, where does that leave you? Because you are one of the most naturally raw and vulnerable people I've ever met. You don't put on the fame game, and you don't have the facade. So that makes social media a minefield, I'll bet.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wanted to say to Dan, it's like you certainly never have to, for your own mental sake, have to say, I know it's weird to be anxious in a singer, because you just say singer. You don't even need to say anxious. It's like I've never, you know, anxiety nearly derailed my career, truly. And there's a lot of help, and I think there's more resources now more than ever. Nowhere near as much as there should be in terms of the music industry taking responsibility for mental health, but certainly you don't have to feel like you, as a singer, you should be just confident and thinkers. And then to go back to what Larry said is like, one of the beautiful things about being a survivor of the music industry, which I think if you're in it for any amount of, even a small amount of years, you can consider yourself to be one, is that it's true of anything, you know. It's like the more that time goes on, the less I'm affected by some random thing on the internet. But I used to be very much so. And it's very true. You will laser focus on the one negative comment and forget the other 200. But I think that social media, to me, it's interesting the way we've started to talk about it as a society, because I think it's now, like you said, Tracy, it's like when we started thinking about it, it was incredibly positive because it was really exciting. And you could connect and reach so many people all at once. But now it has this kind of like feeling, kind of Orwellian, like it's going to take over. It's like controlling us all. Social media isn't going to do anything without human input. It might be, so anything in the hands of humans is either going to get used for good or bad. Just sitting on its own, Twitter doesn't post. It takes for a human being to have some kind of desire to make people feel bad to do it. So I think, again, it's back to the mental health thing. It's why people feel the need to be mean to each other more than social media being the problem. It's a great tool in the hands of human beings, which, as history has decreed, can go very badly or very well.
Tracy, what were you going to say? What were you thinking when
No,
he
I
said
was
that?
just thinking like he's right. You're right. I totally agree. It's an interesting perspective. People are mean. It's not the platform. And why have we I mean, I'm taking a far left as an artist and my cuckoo thinking, why have we as people become so mean? And instead of uplifting each other and supporting each other, why is it always tearing people down? I don't like that. It makes me uncomfortable. And
I often think that people are always afraid that you have an answer that they don't. Therefore, you have a ticket to happiness that they can't obtain. And if they think you know better or you are living better and they're already unhappy, it freaks them out and then they lash out.
And I see it especially within the gay community. It's as, you know, instead of, I mean, we already know what it's like to be bashed. And I mean, especially you and I, Larry, we come from an earlier time, but I don't understand how we can go so far and be so mean at the same time. But in social media being just the outlet. So I like what you said, Pete. That's very, you worded, you summed it all up very well. It's not the platform, it's the people are mean.
But there's something comes to mind though, right? Because one of the things that we do is, whether we be, you know, as performers, remixers, producers, journalists, influencers, whatever you want to call it, we're trying to touch people and we're trying to connect people to things, right? In order to do that, there has to be a degree of vulnerability. It's not, I've had this conversation with people recently where I'm like, it's not enough to just post an emoji. No one cares that you know where the fire emoji is on your phone. Nobody cares. If you can't put something forward that is emotionally connective, then don't even log on, because there's nothing there that will connect you. So on one hand, we have to navigate this minefield of unhappy people who treat emotional and vulnerable people as sport. And yet we're all artists in one way or another. And in order to kind of bring our art, whatever it is, to other people, we have to be publicly vulnerable.
Yeah.
So how do you do that?
It's definitely a lot, but that's all you can do, really. You just have to kind of put yourself out there and hope that people will relate to it or take something from it. And that's what I try and put into my music, because if I can help one person or make someone dance or make someone happy, or for me, that's like my job done. And I'm like, that's one of the best parts about making music and putting yourself online and being vulnerable, is that people really connect with it. And when people message me and say, oh, like this would have helped me so much, or this song, you know, helped me come out, or whatever, like that means so much to me. And it's just, yeah, I love it.
So how do you find the courage on the days when you really have to? How do you find the courage to log on?
I mean, what something I love about what we're doing, and you know, it's very, very typically you, is that to go, it gets there very quickly. But I think it's important, especially what we're talking about. I think you're totally right about social media. For me, just maybe some people want to log on and just have a escapism, in terms of, like, let's use the analogy of a fire emoji, but much like you, I'm going to skip past it unless it has some connective tissue to it or some emotional quality to it. And just on a personal level, my like I said, Dan, it's like my anxiety nearly derailed me, in the sense that because of touring and because of a music industry that didn't support mental health issues, and because I felt like I had nobody to talk to about it, my anxiety I ended up self-medicating it over a period of about a decade on tour with drugs and alcohol, purely to try and fix the anxiety. And that led me to rehab and getting sober. And I've now been sober for 5 years. But the reason I say that is that, thank you, the reason I say it is the main switch that happened in that is that I realized, and it seems like a simple distinction, but it took me 20 years. I realized in getting sober, that vulnerability was my superpower, and not the thing I had to pretend I didn't feel in order to present as Robbie Williams. You know, I'm not, who obviously suffers the same thing and is now vocal about it. Point being is, like, I spent so long on social media, in person, whatever it was, feeling like I had to be the guy, when really I've always been the guy in the corner who wants to just, like, chat to you about something.
Yeah.
And then so social media, when I realized that you could be the same there, once again, it was just another example of, like, vulnerability. I don't know why at some point we equated it as a bad thing. It's a superpower. It means you can relate to people.
I think there's also this, like, thing in the music industry where people just expect you to be, like, you know, this huge persona, and always confident, always outgoing, always, like, sometimes I just want to sit and, like, chat, or I just want to chill, I want to go for a coffee, or, like, especially when you're kind of, like, upcoming, and it's very nerve-wracking when you do like press events and all of this stuff, because you just basically get, like, thrown into it. Like, I went to the Attitude Awards a couple of weeks ago, and I was so nervous, and I was just like, what do I do? Like, it was my first red carpet and everything like that. So, but I had such an amazing time, and I had people kind of like helping me and sort of ushering me in the right direction. So
That's
So
normal, Dan, by the way. Like it's not, we all feel that.
yeah,
All artists, I think, are introverted naturally. We like to be in a room creating, and we, at least in my case, I'm very shy, and people, when I say that, are like, you're not shy. I've learned to master how to be a performer.
yeah,
But I'm an introvert, and I still get nervous. And I, like Pete, I went the self-medicating way too. And, you know, don't go down that route,
yeah,
please. But just know that what you're feeling is so normal, and not everybody, I mean, take it from two people that know, like, it's so normal. I still get nervous before I get on stage, no matter what it is. I'm
yeah.
nervous
Well,
right now,
yeah,
so
it's
it's like
comforting to hear.
that's who we are as
Yeah,
people, and most people are that way. They just don't have the courage to admit it.
exactly. And I think like at the end of the day, as like artists or producers or whoever, like we are just used to kind of sitting in a room and just creating. So whenever we're put into like a situation where it's like public or TV or whatever it is, I feel like it's
They don't give you a handbook for fame.
yeah,
We prepare our whole life in a music way, or whatever the artistic journey that takes us to the spotlight is. I started in radio, and I loved it because nobody saw who I was. I still had my anonymity, and it was the perfect thing for me because I am quite shy, and I
yeah,
could be whoever I wanted behind the mic, similarly to social media and the keyboard. But
but
you
it's
know
really interesting. It's really interesting, and this is something I wanted to ask, bring to you, Tracy, as a contrast to what Dan is talking about. You've attained a very high degree of success, right? You two are at different points in your evolution, and I find, because I'm also very shy, as you know, you and I know each other well enough to know that we both have to kind of stoke ourselves up for even a conversation like this, and then we're both exhausted when it's over, and tell our partners, leave. I can't talk to you for at least an hour because I need to recover. But when you do have to go out and face the world, whether it be in public or on social media, you have to discern who's trying to talk to you and who's trying to talk to an idea of you.
I have a tool that I've used my entire life for this.
Okay, so tell us, because that's the part that nobody also prepares you for. When people say to me, "I love you," I'm like, well, you like
I
the
don't want to
idea
talk
of
to those people. I want to talk. I've done this my whole life. If you're telling me how awesome I am, I already know that. Like, what I want to say is, tell me what I'm not great at. Tell me what you don't like, so I can grow as a person.
yeah.
That's my tool.
So
when people
amazing.
start coming up to you saying, "Oh my God, you're this," nobody knew I had a relationship with Madonna, because I never told anybody. They wouldn't believe me anyway. Girls weren't DJs when I started. And I went, and you know this, Larry, under the alias of the Young Collective on my first remix with her, because I didn't want the attention. It came out of the bag, which I knew it would. And do you know what the reaction was? "Oh my God, have you heard this Tracy Young? She's awesome." Nobody had even heard me spin. So my point is, if people are telling you they love you, tell them, just walk away. Like, that you are awesome. But when they tell you what they don't like, that's a real person, because that takes guts and courage. And, you're going to learn and grow from those conversations.
But I could see the wheels of Pete's
I
brain
see them
spinning.
too.
Can you see them? Can you see
I
them,
see
Tracy
them.
and Dan? We're all watching you, and we're all
Well,
thinking
and you're
he's either about to say something or he's about to throw something. So
Yeah.
go ahead, Dan. Go
Pete's
ahead,
cool.
Pete.
That's my
Go
listening.
ahead, Pete.
I listen hard. That's what I'm doing. The first two Until a Rhythm Breaks albums came out in the first one at the beginning of the Trouble, and the second one right in the midst of the Trouble. And this will be the first, and I didn't think I was ever going to make another record for my own project ever again, because it was mired in all that. It was just part of the trauma, you know. I was getting sober from that too. And partly due to COVID, I found myself in a room full of instruments going like, well, what else would I do? And it's been an absolute blessing. And I'm really, really loving the music. But what comes with that this time is that this strange combination of realizing that the world has changed in terms of social media. You know, I last released a record in 2015, and in internet terms, that's an age ago. So it was fine for me then to have this kind of mysterious, you know, I always wanted Until a Rhythm Breaks to be more of like a massive attack or something where you don't equate it with a person, you feel this kind of like mood or universe. And that perfectly lined at the time with my anxiety. I could put all that in front of it, online, in the artwork, at the shows. It was always like behind some kind of light show or projections or whatever. And I got to pretend that it was all in line with it, whilst also being like, oh my God, I don't even have to be in front of this. And I think the world has changed in terms of the internet because, and I think it's in a good way, is that people just want real. They want raw and they want real, which is why they're like Joe Rogans of this world is enormous, because it's just a conversation with a human being. There's no tricks. And it's like the biggest thing out there. And I think that speaks volumes. And then in line with that has been this massive freedom in myself of not being attached to all that anxiety. And so I think it's time that I start embracing social media more of a, not be so precious about it. I always had to curate it so much. It always had to be so in line with the music and everything. And I think there's still a space for that, but there's also some space to just communicate with people and not be so precious about it all having to be so perfect. And how do I come across and what will people think? It's like hands off the wheel. Like it's not up to me. It's none of my business how people react to it.
But what's very interesting as you're all talking, I'm listening very intently, but I'm also thinking about where each of us are. And I would say, you know, Pete and Tracy, you're in mildly similar places in that you both kind of came up with a certain kind of cloak of mystery around you, and as success has come, Tracy, you've exposed yourself in a variety of ways, and you've let your personality become more
I've
really,
tried.
but not only just more part of your persona, but your personality is much more part of your music. Like because I've been following you from the beginning, I can hear a Tracy Young record at the drop of a needle now, because it's your personality.
Interesting.
In Pete, you're gonna have to be much more of a Quincy Jones and less of a massive attack, because I don't think your personality is going to allow you to be quiet or in the shadows. And Dan, you're entering the room naked.
Yeah. Basically.
Right? Because you talked about this Attitude Awards thing. That was one of the first pictures of you I saw. Now, what you don't know about this Attitude Awards thing is that Dan was in what you could call a very gender fluid outfit. It was beautiful.
Oh, I want to see.
But it was deeply confrontational in a very fashionable way. And
I love
and it was
that.
very, it was fat, you know. But I mean, you know, I listened to a song like Straight Boys, and I think if I were 16 and heard that song, I would have had a much easier go in life.
That's like what I want to bring to this new generation of
So what this brings out in my questioning is, now you're all kind of standing there, three naked people, and you're dealing with the world of social media, which demands nudity, nakedity, but it also demands the idea of perfection, the idea of vulnerability without crumbling, right? Because if you're too vulnerable, then you get the head tilt. Oh, you don't want that. So how do you keep sane?
You don't. Well,
and that's the Sagittarius there, Miss Tracy.
Yeah. Have you? Can I ask your age, Dan? Because
I'm 20.
so you've been born into the social media world.
I have, yeah.
Dan, sure, this is going to scare us all. Dan, what was your first mobile phone?
It was
a fucking iPhone, wasn't it?
No, actually, it surprisingly wasn't. It was a Samsung slide up, like one
okay.
Did it have? It wasn't too bad. It wasn't.
Did it already have the internet on it?
I actually don't know. I think it did.
That means it did.
I remember had some sort of snake. It was a choice, and then my phone after that was like a touchscreen. It's like a Samsung Taco Lite, I think it was called. They're like about this big, and it buzzes when you touch the screen. So yeah, that was
because I think I think it's interesting. And what Tracy was saying is like it's very different in being born into it, because I got to go like, oh yeah, this internet thing, have you seen it? It's like, and then I got to go at my own pace and decide if I wanted to see what MySpace was about and all that. And I did, and it became really like I've got a lot to thank for MySpace. I put some demos up on it, and then a record label got in touch.
Exactly.
Off to the races, but maybe I don't have a lot to thank actually. But point is, I got to choose, right? So it's like I really feel for, I guess I sound so old now, your generation, in the sense that it was just like expected. It's expected of you, social media, right? Like I remember I had label meetings right in the beginning where they were like, shall we with social media? Like that's not something you can.
It's like it's like you literally don't have a choice now. Like if I was gonna have a meeting with a label, they would for sure mention TikTok and how many followers I've got on TikTok and what my marketing strategy is.
Pressure in that.
And like I remember before I had management, I had a meeting with a manager, and they managed people with quite a big following, and that's kind of part of their brand. Like they're kind of like influencer / artist. And he was like, yeah, you don't have enough followers. And I was like, is that really like where we are? Like
that terrifies me.
I was just kind of like, okay,
horrible.
and it just clearly wasn't the right fit for what I stand for.
Well, with that, we will bring Let's Talk Music to a close. Once again, many thanks to Dan Ora, Tracy Young, and Pete Winfield. I'm Larry Flick. We'll see you on VERO.
You know what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.